On the 7th anniversary of my relationship with Anna, a significant news story surged to the top of the trending list. The headline declared, "Astronomer Anna names her first discovered star after her beloved." Anna's accompanying comment read, "In your name, with your surname among the stars, even in the vast universe, you are never alone." Her words touched me deeply. However, my joy quickly turned to disbelief when I noticed the star had been officially named David, not Noah. My name is Noah, and seeing it replaced felt like a punch to the gut. I decided to announce my decision to take the position at the Paris branch. Before I could fully articulate my thoughts, George, my childhood friend and business partner, reacted with shock. "Are you truly going to Paris? Are you prepared to leave Anna behind? If you return in just 2 days, I'll kill you," he threatened. I managed a slight smile and responded earnestly, "I'm serious. Considering everything I've witnessed tonight, my decision is final. I won't abandon Anna halfway." I added, "If I do, I'll bring my head to you." 3 years prior, when the company required someone to develop business out of town, I volunteered after discussing it with Anna, who had no objections at the time. Unfortunately, on the third day, Anna was hospitalized due to severe stomach pain, prompting me to fly back immediately to care for her. Since then, I've remained at the company headquarters, dedicating the past 5 years to supporting Anna. We've been married for 7 years, and since high school, I recognized that Anna was someone who could become so engrossed in her work that she might forget everything else. Moving to a foreign branch would mean seeing her only a few times a year, and I couldn't bear the thought of leaving her alone. After our marriage, many friends questioned how I could maintain a relationship with such a work-centric woman who didn't prioritize family. They believed someone like Anna wasn't suited for marriage. I would simply smile and say, "Because she saved me, both mentally and physically." Coming from a challenging family background, I developed depression. Just as I was on the verge of succumbing to my struggles, Anna stepped in to save me. She consistently accompanied me to see psychologists, rain or shine, never giving up on me. Once I started to recover, I asked her, "Weren't you scared back then? You were so young." She waved her hand and softly laughed, saying, "I couldn't bear to see someone as handsome as you leave this world. The future is long, and I want to experience it with you." Her words were like music to my ears, and I once believed that someone as wonderful as Anna and I could grow old together. Sadly, while fantasies remain beautiful, reality can be harsh. Today marked our 7th wedding anniversary. I had reserved the restaurant where we got engaged, arranged for fireworks, and planned a surprise for her. I even left work early to wait for her at the Research Institute entrance. Instead, I received a trending news notification. Our country's latest discovery, Planet 960306, has been officially named Zach's star. This marks the first star discovered by astronomer Anna, a significant milestone. The first comment on the news was from Anna herself. She wrote, "In your name, with your surname among the stars, even in the universe, you are never alone." Accompanied by a photo of her and David at a Western restaurant, their faces close together. David held the star's certificate in his hand. I glanced at the comments, and the most liked one was from David, stating, "Sharing private romance with the public. Thank you, Anna. I'm so happy." Upon seeing this news, words failed me. It felt as though I had plunged into an endless abyss, enveloped in darkness with no light in sight. No matter how much I struggled, I couldn't escape the void. All I could do was let myself be swallowed by the darkness. In that moment, I thought of Anna. The very person who had saved me now seemed to be the cause of my relapse into depression. Life isn't a multiple-choice question. I was never her sole answer. Tears threatened to spill as I turned off my screen, wiped away the bitter pain, threw my phone into the passenger seat, and drove to the restaurant I had meticulously planned. Under the brilliant fireworks, I dined alone, honoring our nearly 7 years of marriage with 2 steaks. "Stephen, I'll book the apartment in Paris for you. How about you leave next Monday? You have a week to prepare," George suggested. It was already Monday, giving me a week to get ready. When I didn't respond, George sensed something was amiss and cautiously asked, "Are you sure everything's okay with you and Anna?" I couldn't hide what George must have perceived. He had witnessed the entire story between Anna and me from the beginning and must have noticed the strain in our relationship. 7 days were sufficient to conclude my work here and bid farewell to both Anna and my youthful days. I nodded softly and replied, "Okay," gazing out the window at the moonlight. I spoke in a subdued tone, knowing George understood there was trouble in my relationship with Anna, even if he didn't know the exact details. After much contemplation, George spoke solemnly. "The world is vast, filled with wonderful food and intriguing people. If you're willing to move forward, the future holds endless possibilities. Tomorrow is July 1st. A new beginning. The Paris branch will commence operations in a week. Brother, without a woman, there's still a career." The evening breeze fluttered the curtains on the balcony. I retrieved a cigarette from my bag and stepped onto the balcony. Under the bright moon, I lit a cigarette, the lighter clicking sharply in the quiet night. The smoke dissipated into the air as memories from earlier that day replayed in my mind, causing my heart to ache uncontrollably. Finally, I resolved, "George, you're right. Without a woman, I still have my career." After hanging up, I spoke softly to the moon. "Anna, I've decided to let you and him go." When Anna returned, she immediately noticed me standing by the balcony, lost in thought. She slipped on her slippers and approached, seeing me smoking. She paused, but said nothing. Although I heard her coming, I continued my actions, having long abstained from smoking since dating Anna because she disliked the smell. After we became a couple, I quit smoking, enduring withdrawal symptoms at one point. But this time, I wouldn't compromise for anyone. Anna casually handed me a gift box and said, "Happy 7th anniversary. Sorry, I had to work overtime and forgot to inform you." I replied, "It's fine." I finished my last puff, opened the box, and found a watch with a star design on the dial. I smiled faintly, closed the box nonchalantly, and said, "I like the gift, thank you." Anna froze, struggling to find the right words, expecting me to question or demand an explanation. I had anticipated that after seeing the trending news, I would confront her angrily, demand answers, and end our marriage in frustration. As I was about to light another cigarette, Anna snatched the lighter from my hand. She frowned slightly and said, "Didn't I tell you to quit smoking?" In reality, she wasn't truly angry about the smoking. She couldn't stand seeing me so calm and distant. Her frustration was palpable. I responded, "The craving just hit," casually placing the cigarette back in the pack and standing to leave for the bedroom. Anna grabbed my wrist, her eyes filled with mixed emotions. "Today is our wedding anniversary," she said. I didn't understand, so I asked, "So what?" Anna's brows furrowed even more, her grip tightening slightly as she bit her lip. "You didn't even prepare a gift. You're really going to sleep this early." She then climbed into my arms, stood on the tiptoe, and began unbuttoning my shirt. Her lips approached mine, but just as they were about to meet, I turned my head away, causing her kiss to land on my cool chin instead. She whispered, "Noah." Her hands warm as she started to undress, her voice low with a hint of desire. She looked up at me, hoping that if she made the first move, I would immediately respond and feel better. Thinking this, she slipped her hand inside my shirt again, her lips returning to mine, enticing me. I furrowed my brows and forcefully pushed her away, my gaze dark and void-like. Anna stumbled backward, her lower back hitting the guardrail. She winced in pain, looking at me in disbelief. "Stephen, why?" she asked. Anna was adept at seduction, and during our intimate moments, I would easily fall for her gentle teasing. But at this moment, I couldn't focus on that. All I could smell was the lingering scent of men's cologne on her, specifically the woody cologne that David always wore. I took a step back and said flatly, "You worked hard tonight. Get some rest." Ignoring Anna's stunned expression, I put my phone down and went to wash up. When I lay in bed, intending to sleep, Anna entered the room holding my phone. I frowned slightly, expecting her to sulk and sleep in the guest room after I turned her down. I pulled the covers over to my side, seemingly hurting her feelings. She asked, "Stephen, why are you avoiding me? And why did you change our photo on your phone to a countdown calendar?" Holding the phone with the screen facing me, she demanded an explanation. I glanced at it and replied indifferently, "Nothing, just changed it for fun." Anna stood by the bed, staring at me for a long time. I snatched the phone from her hand and shoved it under my pillow, closing my eyes. After a while, Anna grabbed her pillow and stormed out of the master bedroom. I opened my eyes, checked the screen, and read the small text beside the countdown. 7 days left until I go abroad. If she really cared, she would have noticed I was leaving by now. Unfortunately, Anna's feelings had already shifted. I placed the phone down, staring at the ceiling until dawn. The next day, before dawn, I rose early and began packing away everything in the master bedroom that reminded me of our memories, planning to discard them upon my departure. I retrieved the custom-made suit from the walk-in closet, which was taking up too much space. Grabbing a pair of scissors, I began cutting it into pieces, bundling the fragments together. Then, I took our 2 thick wedding photo albums outside, intending to burn them in the yard when fewer people were around. The flames illuminated my face as I watched the albums burn, seeing images of us smiling turn into ash. Anna screamed, "Noah, what are you doing?" Thinking there was a fire, she rushed out to check and found me burning our wedding photos. I glanced at her and calmly said, "Nothing." Enraged by my indifference, Anna attempted to rescue the still intact photos from the flames, but the fire was too intense, forcing her to pull her hands back. Her eyes, red with anger, glared at me. "Why?" she demanded. I met her gaze silently for a moment before turning and walking away. By the time I finished, the sky was fully bright. I was about to shower and head to the office when Anna followed me into the master bedroom, freezing upon seeing the empty room and the suit fragments. After I emerged from the bathroom, she was crouched on the floor, trying to piece together the wedding dress fragments. I ignored her and went to the balcony to light a cigarette. She said, "It's okay. The wedding dress style from 7 years ago is outdated. We can reshoot with the new style when we have time." I wasn't sure if she was addressing me or just rationalizing her actions to accept that I had destroyed our memories. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. Anna folded the suit fragments and set them aside before leaving the master bedroom. When I came out, she was surprisingly making breakfast in the kitchen, which left me momentarily stunned. I had discovered she could cook through David's social media posts, where he documented all the things Anna did for him, like making his favorite snail noodles during overtime, picking him up in the rain, and preparing gifts for him on holidays. It was similar to the latest trending news where David insisted on having his own star, generously accepting Anna's gift. That night, I agonizingly scrolled through David's social media, rewatching the story of their relationship. I observed how Anna treated him differently, making him feel special. Anna invited me to have breakfast, saying, "I made your favorite millet porridge." She had composed herself, pretending nothing was wrong, and pulled me to sit at the table. I took a spoonful and then put it down. Confused, Anna looked at me. I quietly said, "I only eat sweet millet porridge. Someone once told me sweet things stimulate dopamine production, so I crave sweetness." Anna froze for a few seconds before quickly responding, "The kitchen has eggs. I'll get them for you." I shook my head and said, "No, I'm in a hurry. Yesterday, David posted on his social media. Senior promised to bring me breakfast tomorrow. I want fried eggs and meat millet porridge." Anna grabbed my arm as I was about to leave, frowning tightly. "Are you mad? Is it just because I didn't accompany you yesterday?" Work suddenly came up. I already apologized. The research is nearing its end. As the head, I can't just focus on romance. You've always supported my work, haven't you? So what's the fuss about this morning? Yes, that's how we've always been. I loved her and tolerated everything, even when she forgot my birthday, our anniversary, or didn't come home for days. I never complained because I knew this was her dream. But one day, after she completed a research project, she waited for me at the company. I heard her phone incessantly ringing. Normally, she found replying to messages troublesome, but that day she kept typing without looking up, a joyful smile on her face. That was the first time I heard David's name from her lips, a troublesome and awkward junior. It was also the first time I realized she didn't mind replying to messages or typing at all. It wasn't that she didn't love me. I simply wasn't the one she wanted to spend her time with. I pulled my hand away from hers, my gaze flat as I said, "I'm tired after all these years. We need to—" Before I could finish, her phone rang. It was David's ringtone. She didn't even glance at the screen before answering. "Hello." David's voice was teasing. "Senior, I'm starving. When are you coming back? What if I starve to death and start clinging to you?" Anna laughed affectionately. "You ate a lot of crayfish yesterday, already hungry." "All right, I'll be back now," I replied with a cold smile. David seemed to sense something and added, "By the way, Senior, you should take your senior Noah out for a meal. Yesterday was your anniversary. I took your star and made you treat me to late-night snacks. You should thank him with a nice meal." Hearing this, a pang of guilt flashed across Anna's eyes. She instinctively took a few steps back, still holding her phone. I scoffed and said nothing. Anna quickly brushed off David with a few words and hurried after me, explaining that the research on David's star was a joint effort and that he was preparing for his birthday, so she had gone along with it. The late-night snacks were with a group of people, not just the two of us. Stop overthinking. I calmly looked at her, recognizing that she had been working on the planet research for 3 years while David had only been involved for 3 months. Didn't she find that reasoning laughable? Anna always tugged at her clothes when she lied or felt nervous. When I was dropped off at the neighborhood entrance, Anna was called away by David for work or some other reason. I didn't care anymore. This had happened countless times before. This summer had seen unusually heavy rain. One evening, I got caught in the rain after work, and that night I suddenly developed a fever. Dazed, I watched as Anna got up to change clothes. Noticing my gaze, she explained, "David's cat is sick. He's a big guy and can't take care of it. I'm going to check on it." I stared at her blankly. Just before she was about to leave the room, I called out, intending to ask for cold medicine. But the words changed as I spoke. "Anna, I have a fever. Can you take me to the hospital first?" Anna stood by the door, looking conflicted. She glanced at her vibrating phone and then walked to the living room to grab the medicine kit. "You seem okay. Take a fever reducer for now. David's situation is urgent. I'll take you to the hospital once I'm back." She left in a hurry without noticing that I was lying in an 18-degree air-conditioned room covered with a blanket and drenched in sweat. It wasn't like the summers in college when I would rush into the air-conditioned library after sports class, with her trailing behind me, expressionless, wiping my sweat and scolding me. "You think you're invincible? It's so hot outside, and you're running into the air-conditioned room. When you get a fever, you'll make me take care of you." I blinked my slightly sore eyes and gave a bitter smile. Hadn't I known all along who was more important to her? What was I even doing, making myself miserable? My earlier actions made me seem like a fool. By early morning, I felt extremely unwell. So I called an ambulance. After getting an injection at the hospital, I began to feel better. The doctor, knowing I hadn't had a checkup in a long time, suggested a full body examination. In the end, I only had a blood test and a basic checkup. With work hours approaching, I didn't have time to wait for the results, so I added the doctor on WeChat to discuss them later. When I arrived at the office, my dizziness was still severe. George noticed immediately and asked, "Fever? Let me take you to the hospital." He dropped the new company documents on my desk and started pulling me toward the door. I yanked him back, patted his hand, and hoarsely said, "I just came from the hospital. It's nothing serious." After George ensured I was truly okay, he pointed at the pile of documents and said, "Hurry up and catch up on the materials. If something goes wrong, I'll kick you out of the company." With the energy of a high school student cramming for exams, I pored over the materials until evening. Before leaving the office, I checked my email and saw that the lawyer had already sent over the draft divorce agreement. Holding the divorce papers, I drove through the heavy rain to Anna's research institute. Upon parking in the underground garage, my phone buzzed with a social media notification. It was a video posted by David showing Anna and him attending a recent anime fan meetup. David had won a game and, in his excitement, kissed Anna in the middle of the crowd. The caption read, "When I first met you, I thought that even if we couldn't be open about it, I still wanted to have you. Now, it's finally come true." Having been with Anna for 12 years, sharing each other's youth, I still felt like the woman in the video was a stranger, as if I had never truly known her. In the distance, I heard a hoarse, low growl. "Senior, please, don't leave me. Is it wrong to like you? I've liked you since school." Following the sound, I saw a man cornering a woman by the car. His eyes were red as he questioned her. In her moment of despair, the man lowered his head and kissed Anna on the lips. Her hands, previously hanging by her sides, instinctively wrapped around his waist as he kissed her. They shared a long kiss in the rainy night. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the parking lot. "Who?" When Anna saw me, she seemed to lose her composure. "Stephen, how are you here?" I walked toward them step by step. David protested, "Senior, it's not like that. It's not her fault. It's me who likes her. It's all—" Before he could finish, I punched David square in the face, knocking him to the ground, and then ruthlessly kicked him twice. I threw the wedding ring at Anna. She snapped back to reality, ignoring David. I felt like I was going to die. I thought I was going to die repeatedly as I struggled with my emotions. David attempted to explain. "My relationship with him isn't what you saw." But I ignored her. As I was about to close the car door, Anna stopped me just before I did, her eyes full of pleading. She said, "Noah, I only see him as a child. It was just a joke." I scoffed. "He's only 3 years younger than us, a giant baby." Anna's gaze faltered, and an intense unease grew within her. She had a strong premonition that if she let me leave that night, our relationship would truly be over. "Noah, we've been together for so many years. You can't just abandon me. If you leave, I won't be able to live. David is just a passing fling," she said, her words growing increasingly shaky. A desperate scream from David suddenly came from behind. "Senior, I've loved you for 10 years. If you don't want me, I don't want to live anymore." David held a broken piece of glass against his neck and said, "Anna, look at me. Look at me. If you don't turn back now, I'll slit my throat." Anna unconsciously let go of me and turned around. I sneered and said, "Go to him then." Without hesitation, I slammed the door and drove off. In the rearview mirror, I saw Anna holding David, her eyes still fixed on the direction I was leaving. I rolled down the window, and soon my face was drenched. Whether from tears or rain was hard to tell. When I arrived home, I began packing my things. I had intended to part on good terms with Anna, but at that moment, I felt that all the years I had spent with her were a mistake. Wasting 12 years of my youth made me feel foolish. I just wanted to leave as quickly as possible. I took out a suitcase from the closet that I hadn't used in a long time. This suitcase was a gift from Anna when we got married. At the time, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I said, "Anna, you're so strange. Who gives a suitcase as a wedding gift?" Anna, acting smug, leaned close to my ear and casually asked, "Do you like it?" "Yes," I smiled, turning to look at her. My warm lips brushed against her cheek. Anna froze, her breath shallow, looking into my eyes filled with stars. Her heartbeat faltered, and without thinking, she kissed my lips. I pulled her close, cradling her neck as I kissed her back. When the kiss ended, we embraced, breathing heavily. Anna nuzzled my neck, her voice husky as she said, "I have something else you like even more." Confused, I looked down at her. Anna smiled and kissed my cheek, then knelt down to fiddle with the suitcase. She said, "Enter the password to open it. The password is your birthday." Curious, I opened it and was immediately stunned to find 23 neatly arranged gifts. Anna explained that since she had sometimes neglected my birthdays due to work, she was making it up to me with 23 gifts, one for each of my birthdays. Stephen, from now on, I'll remember every one of your birthdays. I was overwhelmed with emotion, hugging her tightly, not wanting to let go. Recalling that moment, tears streamed down my face. Even though many years had passed, I still clearly remembered how happy and touched I felt back then. But alas, time changes everything, and people change with it. I wiped my tears away and mechanically shoved things back into the suitcase. Halfway through, I received a call from a mutual friend. I cynically thought, Anna truly is a master of time management. While comforting her little lover, she still managed to have a friend come soothe her. When my friends saw that I was resolute about the divorce, they could only sigh, Stephen, I just hope you won't regret your decision later. As I finished packing and was about to leave, I heard a sound at the front door. Looking up, I saw Anna drenched in rain. She said, Stephen, don't leave. Can you let me explain? Just as I was about to refuse, the phone beside the suitcase lit up. In that instant, I froze. Anna, wanting to hug me, stopped and bent down to pick up the phone. I felt my heart skip a beat, and before she could, I grabbed the phone and slipped it into my pocket. Anna, her eyes red, asked, Stephen, what's wrong? My mind had stopped working. I said, it's nothing. I glanced at the message, just in time to see the doctor saying I had a tumor. I had always had poor health and didn't enjoy checkups, so I never considered the possibility of a tumor. Anna had even fasted, bathed, and prayed many times for my health, but my condition never improved. Later, she stopped bringing it up, but now, instinctively, I clenched my fists, my mind racing. This illness couldn't have come at a worse time. I didn't want Anna to know I was sick just yet. The plan to leave was disrupted. I had no choice but to offer a few vague words to Anna before lying back down in bed. Seeing this, Anna tucked me in before heading to the bathroom. Only then did I pick up my phone and text the doctor, asking for an update. Doctor, my health has always been poor. Is it benign or malignant? The doctor hesitated to make a definitive judgment and simply advised me to go to the hospital for a checkup. Only after getting the results could they make a final conclusion. Reading this response, I felt even more uncertain. Though my relationship with Anna had come to an end, I still wanted to live. All these years, I had made every effort to take care of my body. Before long, the bathroom door opened, and Anna, wrapped in a towel, walked toward the bed. The bed sank slightly as she climbed in and curled up in my arms. Husband, we haven't been together in a long time. She breathed softly into my ear, her warm breath grazing my earlobe and making me shiver. I instinctively placed my hand on my chest, feeling out of breath. I didn't want to speak the truth, so I could only say in a cold voice, Anna, let go of me or go sleep in the guest room. Anna, aware she was in the wrong today, dared not anger me further. She released me and moved to the other side. Only then did my tense nerves begin to loosen a little. My mind was in chaos, but for the sake of my health, I forced myself to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to find that Anna was no longer at home. After asking for time off, I went to the hospital alone. When the doctor received my test results, his expression immediately became serious, and my heart sank. The situation isn't very optimistic. To minimize the risk of the surgery, you should undergo the procedure as soon as possible. I walked out of the consultation room like a zombie, feeling immense guilt, regret, and self-blame. But nothing could be undone. If this was the case, I had to act swiftly. Life must go on, and I didn't want to be held back by anything anymore. I scheduled the surgery for Friday morning and went home to rest, knowing there would be a difficult confrontation waiting for me that night. Since I had to undergo surgery, I decided not to keep it from Anna. Anna's reaction to the news that I was ill and needed surgery wouldn't be calm. I needed to conserve my energy. It was almost midnight, and Anna still hadn't returned home or left any message for me. I couldn't describe how I felt at that moment. Was I sad? No, maybe I was numb. I called Anna's phone, and it was answered almost immediately. Before I could say anything, David's voice came through. "George, Senior is asleep. If you need anything, call back tomorrow," he said before hanging up. I wasn't angry and planned to call Anna in the morning. There was still time. The next morning, I was already at the hospital, but Anna's phone remained unreachable. I was about to go in for the surgery when I felt the urge to call George. Just then, Anna's call came through. She said, "Stephen, I'm sorry. My phone ran out of battery. I just turned it on. Last night, our team made a breakthrough, and we were so excited celebrating that I forgot to update you," Anna quickly explained. Worried I might misunderstand, but I wasn't concerned. I went straight to the point. "Do you have time to come to the hospital?" Anna asked anxiously. "Noah, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" "It's nothing serious." Before I could finish, David's scream interrupted me from the other end of the line. Anna was serious. Before I could finish, David's scream interrupted me. Anna said, "David, what's wrong?" In a hurry, she dropped the phone and rushed to check on David. I gave a self-deprecating smile and hung up the phone, walking alone toward the operating room. After work in the evening, Anna came home early and found the house empty. It was then she realized I was in the hospital. Seeing me pale and resting in the hospital bed, a flash of guilt passed through her eyes. "Stephen, I'm sorry. This morning, it's fine." I didn't want to hear it and cut her off. Anna noticed the large number of medications on the table and sat by my bed, concerned. "Was the surgery successful? How are you feeling? Do you need to be transferred to a better hospital?" I was weak and didn't have the energy for pointless conversations. Slowly, I turned to the other side to rest. "Stephen, don't be upset. When you get better, I'll take you on the Northwestern Grand Loop trip you've been talking about, okay?" 7 years of marriage, and this was the first time Anna mentioned a trip with me. In the past, whenever I suggested going away to relax, Anna always had an excuse to decline. Even our honeymoon trip was canceled because she was busy with work, and the Northwestern Grand Loop trip was something I had already done alone but didn't want to tell her about. This time, although she was the one to bring up the trip, I knew that before we left she would find a valid excuse not to go. It was a trip destined to remain just words. So I gave her a perfunctory response. "Okay." Anna was thrilled that I agreed. In her eyes, my response was a sign that we would reconcile soon. "I knew you still love me, Stephen. I won't disappoint you again," she said, genuinely excited about the long-delayed honeymoon. I didn't know if it was fate or bad luck, but the flight tickets she booked coincided with the day I was supposed to go to Paris. I was playing a game with little interest when my social network pushed an update. Seeing David's name, I knew his daily self-torture was about to begin. Since Anna had taken time off, David started posting about his feelings for her every day, either to torment me or annoy me. I watched it all with an expressionless face. Today, it seemed he had reached his breaking point and sent a random message saying, "She will be mine." I smirked slightly and posted an update on my own social network. My wife promised to leave everything behind and travel the world with me. Life is short. Every day is precious. The past will always be the past, and we will live happily from now on. David couldn't hold back anymore. By the afternoon, he arranged to meet me at a cafe. I saw him looking haggard. "David, do you love her that much? After everything that's happened between us, you still won't give up on her?" I didn't deny it and simply waved my hand. "She said she loves me. Without me, she would die." David looked even more distraught. "Are you leaving? Why? Why didn't she tell me?" I opened the screenshot of the flight ticket Anna had booked and showed it to him. I deliberately said, "I've been with her for 12 years. He cried and begged me to forgive her. I told him that if she was willing to quit her job and leave with me, I would forgive her. He agreed without hesitation. I raised an eyebrow and smiled, but there was no warmth in my eyes. David nearly went mad, grabbing his hair and biting his lip, his voice breaking as he shouted from his throat, "Impossible, it's impossible. She said she had feelings for me." I looked at him coldly. David really knew how to hurt. On our 7th anniversary, he made a public spectacle with Anna, putting their relationship on trending. He made sure I saw their tangled mess whenever I saw my car, repeatedly forcing her to abandon me and choose him. However, Anna's level of commitment to me became the only flaw in his plan. Despite all his plotting, his efforts were in vain. Enraged and humiliated, David lunged at me, trying to hit me, but I punched him down to the ground. The next moment, I gritted my teeth and kicked him repeatedly until I felt discomfort in my body. I then crouched down, grabbed his collar, and mocked, "Kid, if you're going to be a third wheel, you'd better know your place." She was willing to risk her life to save me. "You really think?" I paused for effect and said, "You think you can beat me?" Looking at the unwillingness in his handsome face, I kindly reminded him again, "If Anna really left with me tomorrow, I would forgive her, and we would live happily together. But if she didn't leave with me, then we'd never have a chance again." I didn't say the next part, but seeing the gleam in David's eyes, I knew he understood. At the entrance of the community, Anna anxiously checked her phone over and over again. She pressed her lips tightly together, looking at me with guilt and apology. "Stephen, this time is different. David is threatening to jump off a building at the research institute. We might have to cancel the Northwestern trip." David really knew how to hurt himself. I didn't respond. I just calmly looked at her without blinking. I mentally etched the image of this woman, whom I had loved for 12 years, into my mind repeatedly. When her patience was about to run out, I suddenly spoke. "I already know why you didn't have dinner with me on my birthday." Anna's face immediately froze, wanting to explain but not knowing how to start. After a long pause, she finally spoke. That anime meetup had an author David really liked. It was his last time attending a meetup. We had agreed that it would be a graduation gift, and I didn't want to turn him down. I laughed softly and replied, "That was also my favorite author." Anna was stunned for a few seconds. In her habitual way, she began, "Then next time I—" Her words were abruptly cut off. I stared into her eyes and firmly said, "There will be no next time." We locked eyes for a few minutes. Suddenly, I looked down and waved my hand at her. "David's about to jump. You're the team leader. It wouldn't be right for you not to handle this. Go ahead." Anna hesitated for a few seconds, then looked at me with pleading eyes and said, "What about the Northwestern Grand Loop?" I curved my lips into a slight smile and replied, "We can talk about it another time." Anna seemed to have received a reprieve. She rushed out into the rain to take a taxi back to the Astronomical Bureau. Before heading to the airport, I specifically printed out the medical report and placed it on Anna's nightstand. Then, I took a taxi to the airport. While waiting for my flight, I aimlessly flipped through my phone. All the photos of Anna had already been deleted, but I wanted to see if there were any stragglers left behind. When I scrolled to the oldest photos, I found one. It was a snapshot of our engagement day taken by George. In the photo, Anna wore a white little dress, and I was kneeling on one knee, holding a ring, looking at her. I had my hands over my mouth, my face full of shock. Back then, we truly loved each other, but unfortunately, time had passed, and things had changed. Lovers eventually became strangers. After deleting the photo, I closed my eyes to rest. An hour later, I boarded the plane to Paris. Before takeoff, I sent a compressed file to both our parents and mutual friends. At 10 a.m. Paris time, my plane landed. The person George had sent to pick me up was holding a sign in the crowd. I waved and walked toward her. She said, "Mr. Lynn, I'm your new assistant, Sophie." Sophie introduced herself while taking my luggage. I nodded in acknowledgement. She handed me a new phone with a phone card inside. Mr. Wu specifically instructed me to give this to you. He also told me to let you know that if you want to use this new number from now on, you don't have to worry about anything in China. He'll take care of it. As one of the company's bosses, I had many important clients to maintain relationships with, so I wouldn't change my phone number unless absolutely necessary. Holding the new phone, I felt a surge of gratitude. "I understand. Thank you, Sophie." Confused by my emotional reaction and not quite understanding why a new phone would make me so emotional, she replied, "It's no problem, Mr. Lin. The car to your residence is waiting outside. Please follow me. I walked behind my assistant, feeling somewhat detached. Sophie thought I might be homesick after receiving the phone, so she gently tried to comfort me. Mr. Lin, the branch is still in its early stages, but once it gets on track in a couple of months, you'll be able to work remotely from China. Hearing this, my gaze darkened, but I smiled without saying anything. Sophie noticed this and fell silent, quietly leading the way. In the car, I sat in the back, resting my eyes. Sophie, from the front passenger seat, turned and softly said, "Mr. Lin, Mr. Wu has arranged a welcome banquet for you. Would you like to go straight to the banquet after you rest? Or would you prefer to go to your residence first?" I opened my eyes to look at her. Sophie added, "Mr. Wu has arranged for your accommodation in a villa near the company. The welcome banquet is in the south of the city, and the two directions don't align well. The company staff is really looking forward to meeting you." I watched her lips move, but the sound seemed to fade as I began to feel a ringing in my ears. I didn't catch the rest of her words, but from her expression, I could tell this young assistant was really hoping I would attend the welcome banquet. Since the surgery, I had never had a chance to rest properly. Although the operation was successful, my body was still weak. I had been traveling for nearly 10 hours to reach this new company, and my body was already operating in overdrive. But I couldn't bear to disappoint anyone, especially not George's kindness. "Let's go to the welcome banquet." "All right," Sophie straightened up and told the driver in French to turn the car toward the welcome banquet. The vehicle sped onto the highway. The previously silent car was suddenly interrupted by a buzzing sound. I took out my phone to check. It was a message from Anna. She wrote, "Noah, please don't be mad. David hasn't been doing well, and I'm afraid he might do something drastic again. I have to stay with him tonight and wait until he's in a better state before I come back to be with you. Darling, I love you. Once I'm back, we'll go on the Northwestern Grand Loop trip. Wait for me." I looked at the two messages and couldn't help but smile, thinking, Anna is truly a good woman. She was so afraid that the sound of her conversation with her real husband would disturb her little lover that even when she stayed out all night, she only sent me a text. Even so, Anna still had the nerve to say she loved me. It was laughable. I muted my phone and put it back in my bag. Staring out at the fast-moving scenery outside the window, a wave of dizziness hit me and my body slumped forward. The next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital. "Mr. Lin, you're awake. You scared me to death," Sophie said, sitting beside me, watching the IV drip with a haggard expression. I was stunned and noticed the darkened sky outside the window. I asked, "You've been here taking care of me?" As soon as I spoke, I was startled by the raspy sound of my voice. She replied, "Yes, Mr. Wu asked me to take care of you." Sophie stood up, adjusted the bed for me, and poured me a glass of water. I felt a bit guilty and awkward, stiffly saying, "Thank you." Sophie noticed my discomfort and tried to lighten the mood. "You don't have to thank me, Mr. Lin. I'm George's distant cousin, and I've been looked after by him for many years. So I'll make sure to carry out everything he's entrusted me with. If you really feel bad, maybe you could help me pay for the parking fine I got for parking in the emergency lane." I couldn't help but laugh. Just as I was feeling drowsy, Anna sent me another message. She asked, "Stephen, are you asleep? Why aren't you replying to my messages? I miss you so much." I read the message in a daze, and goosebumps instantly spread across my body. Sophie noticed my reaction and leaned over. "Is this your wife? It must be around 2 a.m. in Beijing for her to still send you texts at this hour. She really must love you, Mr. Lin. You're so lucky." Love? Lucky? A self-mocking look appeared in my eyes. If I told Sophie that Anna was sending me these messages from the bed of her lover, would she still think I was lucky? I couldn't think of a reason why. Unless she hadn't gone home, Anna wouldn't have seen what I had left for her. Sophie asked, "Mr. Lin, why are you silent? Did I guess right?" Sophie was watching me eagerly. I was dizzy from the noise, so I half-jokingly said, "Assistant Caro, if you're really jealous, I can have George introduce you to a boyfriend." Don't. Sophie immediately shut up and slouched to the side to play on her phone. I couldn't help but chuckle. There was one last IV drip to finish, and then I could be discharged. I lay on the bed, feeling incredibly tired, but I just couldn't fall asleep. I kept thinking, did Anna not see the compressed file? Why could she so calmly send me flirtatious messages? The more I thought about it, the more irritated I became. So I decided to send the compressed file to Anna again. I held my phone and waited for a long time, but no new messages came from Anna. Feeling frustrated, I tossed my phone aside and tried to close my eyes. Just as I was about to fall asleep, the phone rang. My anger flared up again, thinking that Anna had finally responded, but when I saw the caller ID, it was my mom. I nearly dropped the phone in shock. I was never afraid of anything in this world except for hearing my mom cry. I lost my father at a young age, and my mom raised me alone. She worked hard to put me through school, so I matured early. I was always the model student, receiving awards left and right, the perfect child in everyone's eyes. Maybe because of that long period of high-pressure studies, or perhaps because I put so much pressure on myself, I unknowingly developed depression. After college, my mom remarried, and my depression worsened. But I had always kept my illness hidden from her, not wanting her to worry. Now, reflecting on the impulse I had when I sent that compressed file, I regretted it. I had wanted to appear offline to let the ringtone stop, but it rang again and again, refusing to give up until I answered. I couldn't avoid it any longer, so I took a deep breath and answered the phone. "Mom," she said, "Stephen, you finally answered my call." As soon as my mom heard my voice, she started crying. "Mom, please don't cry. I'm fine. Really, when you cry, I get worried." My mom sniffled and quickly said, "I'm not crying. Don't cry. I'm fine. Really. When you cry, I get worried." My mom sniffled and quickly said, "I'm not crying. Don't worry, Noah. Tell me the truth. Did Anna really do something wrong? Is everything in the compressed file you sent me true?" I didn't want my mom to worry, but since I had impulsively sent the file to everyone, I could only tell the truth now. "Yes, Mom. I want a divorce." In my mom's eyes, Anna had always been the perfect daughter-in-law. She loved her dearly, treating her as if she were her own daughter. Sometimes, I even felt jealous, but to think that someone the G family had treated so sincerely could do something so disgusting was heartbreaking. My mom knew how much I loved Anna. Hearing me calmly say that I wanted a divorce hurt her deeply. She said, "Stephen, no matter what decision you make, Mom will support you. I just want you to be happy. Your mom and uncle will always be your strongest support." Her words made my eyes sting with tears. I took a deep breath to hold back the tears and, with a stuffy nose, replied, "I know, Mom." With the understanding of my family, my heart felt warm, and the dark cloud in my mind began to clear up a little. The next morning, when Anna woke up, she realized she was lying next to someone. Out of habit, she reached out to embrace the person's waist, but the feeling was all wrong. This wasn't Stephen's body. She widened her eyes in shock and quickly sat up. Yesterday, she had rushed to the research institute to coax David down from the rooftop. When she was about to head back to Stephen, David had hugged her from behind, crying miserably, saying, "Please don't leave tonight." "Okay, Senior, please. Just tonight. I've loved you for so long. Just stay with me for one night, please." Anna wavered. In her mind, two voices were pulling at her. One told her to go back because Stephen was waiting for her to go on their trip, but the other urged her to stay. Stephen had sent her here. If Stephen got angry, she could just appease him, cry a little more, and he would forgive her. But David's tears were so intense, she couldn't bear to leave. Looking at David sleeping beside her, Anna felt as though she was about to lose Stephen. Her heart ached, and she couldn't breathe. She suddenly remembered the nostalgic yet resolute look Stephen had given her when they said goodbye at the neighborhood gate yesterday. It felt as though they might never see each other again. She had sent Stephen several texts, but they were all met with silence. The more she thought about it, the more anxious she became. She hurriedly scrambled on the floor to find her phone, but it was dead. After sending the text to Stephen, Her phone had run out of battery. She vaguely remembered receiving other messages, but at the time, her mind had been consumed by the two men, and she hadn't paid attention to anyone else. Anna grabbed the charger and tried plugging it in several times before it finally started charging. The next 2 minutes felt like 2 centuries to her. Finally, the phone powered up. Anna immediately called Noah. The call went through, but he didn't answer, and it kept ringing until it automatically hung up. Anna's heart tightened, her palms sweating, and a vague sense of unease made her breath quicken. She pressed the redial button twice. This time, the call was quickly disconnected on the other end, and Anna's heart dropped to the bottom. But the next second, another call came in. Anna didn't even check the caller ID. She picked up the phone and immediately called out, "Hubby," but she was met with a furious rant from the other side. Anna was momentarily stunned, and after a moment, she realized that Stephen had edited a video of her and David and sent it to their relatives and friends. At the end of the video, Stephen had added his personal touch. "This video is a wedding gift for Miss Anna and Mr. David, wishing the two of you a lifetime of happiness." After hanging up, she opened Stephen's chat and saw only one message. "The divorce agreement is on the dining table. Sign it and leave my house. Thank you." Anna collapsed into tears, and the noise woke David. He rubbed his sleepy eyes, sat up, and hugged Anna's shoulders. His voice was raspy from the aftermath, and he asked, "Senior, what happened?" Anna, trembling, didn't even consider David, who was still holding her. She shakily dialed Stephen's number. When the call went through, she felt a brief moment of relief. Stephen hadn't blocked her. Did that mean there was still a chance? David said, "Senior, don't make that call. Come, look at me." David pulled her into his arms and kissed her neck. "That man is old and boring. You've been with him for 12 years, and didn't you say you were already tired of it? Why not stay with me? Wouldn't that be better?" As he spoke, David tried to kiss her lips. Anna's fury exploded instantly. She slapped David hard and shouted, "It's all your fault. You seduced me, and that's why Stephen isn't answering my calls." David was stunned, touching his reddened cheek, staring at the woman in front of him who was getting dressed. He had been by Anna's side for so long, and she had never treated him this way. She had always been obedient to him, even more so than to her husband. Today, Stephen didn't answer her phone, and she was furious like this. Why? David couldn't understand. As Anna was about to leave, David, shirtless, ran after her. He shouted, "Senior, Anna, I won't let you go." David screamed in desperation several times, but Anna never looked back and hurriedly walked away. Anna slammed the door open and sped home, her foot slamming on the accelerator. This summer had seen a lot of rain several times. One evening, she almost lost control of the car and nearly caused an accident. The driver she almost hit shouted at her from his car, swearing in the heavy rain. But Anna seemed oblivious, as if in a trance, hearing nothing. The only thought in her mind was, go home, and find Stephen. He loved me so much, he would soften. If not, I would kneel and beg him. Stephen would never be able to resist. Everything was still salvageable. I'm sure of it. But when Anna returned home, the place was empty. It felt like half of the home had vanished. Everything that belonged to Stephen was gone. Her mind flashed back to when she had been packing her things earlier. She had joked, "We're just going on a trip, not moving forever. Why are you packing so much?" What had Stephen said back then? He hadn't said anything. He had just looked at her calmly. Anna's heart twisted in pain, as if it were being pierced by needles. Stephen had made up his mind to leave her so suddenly. No, that couldn't be the case. It was impossible. Stephen was merely angry, concealing himself somewhere, anticipating her efforts to reach out. He was waiting to calm down and forgive her. Anna desperately rummaged through the house, searching for anything that reminded her of Stephen. She convinced herself that finding his belongings would mean he would return. The house felt hollow, but perhaps he had simply grown weary of those mementos. After 7 years, it was understandable if he no longer cherished them. When he did return, she would leave with him to purchase new items. Anything he desired, she would provide, as long as Stephen came back. However, after an extensive search, everything that belonged to Stephen was gone. Anna's last shred of hope shattered. She choked, thinking, "Stephen, you can't be this heartless." Clinging to her final hope, Anna entered their bedroom. From afar, she noticed a piece of paper on the bedside table, and her heart skipped a beat. She hurried over, but upon reading the paper, she completely broke down. She cried out, "Stephen, you underwent such a major surgery, and I didn't even know. I'm the one who failed you. I didn't take care of you properly." Slowly, Anna knelt down, tears dripping one by one onto the medical document. She had tried calling, but Stephen never answered. With no other options, Anna decided to visit Stephen's company to find someone. She parked her car at the company's entrance and rushed inside. However, as soon as she walked through the front door, a security guard stopped her. The guard, maintaining a formal demeanor, informed her that the boss had ordered no entry for those unrelated to the company. Anna's heart ached at his words. Believing Stephen must be inside, she attempted to force her way in. The security guard, steadfast in his duty, refused to let her ascend to the upper floors. Their struggle attracted the attention of colleagues working late and passers-by. The guard stated, "Miss, I won't allow you upstairs today. If you truly care about our chairman Lynn and wish to preserve his reputation, you wouldn't be so inconsiderate." The guard's stern and somber expression made Anna finally calm down. She glanced around, noticing that most employees knew she was Stephen's wife. She couldn't create a scene and add to his burden or embarrassment. If she embarrassed him like this, and Stephen had indeed decided to leave her, he wouldn't even know where to turn. After sincerely apologizing to the security guard, Anna returned to her car and sought out one of their mutual friends. However, none were willing to help her. In desperation, Anna kept calling George. On her 10th attempt, George finally answered. Through him, she discovered that Stephen had been exhibiting signs of depression relapse and had fainted from weakness after surgery, ending up in the hospital. Anna struggled to believe it. She couldn't accept it. After several days of inquiries, she learned that Stephen had gone to Paris and wouldn't return for 2 or 3 years. Anna stood frozen, her mind blank as if struck by lightning, then laughed bitterly. The man who was once so easy to find had become someone she had to relentlessly pursue. Anna reviewed their chat history and suddenly realized that Stephen had been distancing himself for a long time. He had stopped sharing his daily life with her long ago, but she had been engrossed with David during that period. Now the only response she received from him was a red exclamation mark. She checked his social media, noticing that all their previous romantic posts had vanished. The only remaining post was a reshared tweet that read, "When did you completely give up on someone after repeated lies and concealments? I hope I can live happily forever." Anna repeatedly refreshed the screen, hoping Stephen's old posts would reappear magically. She recalled 3 years ago when Stephen had traveled to Paris for work but had decisively returned to care for her when she fell ill. Seeing her weak and bedridden, his eyes had immediately shown concern. It was she who had comforted him for a long time, soothing his distress. At that time, George had been angry and helpless because Stephen had rushed back, berating him. "You're the ultimate simp. I have no words for you." How had Stephen responded? Anna suddenly remembered. Stephen, gazing at her with eyes full of affection, had confidently replied to George, "My yin-yang is sick. Of course I need to be by her side. What's wrong with being the ultimate simp? I want to be with her for life." Anna smiled so widely her eyes narrowed. George, repulsed by the sentiment, left the room hastily. Anna stared at Stephen's empty social media page, reminiscing all the beautiful moments they had shared. Their first meeting, his immediate attraction to her, getting to know each other, his thoughtful companionship, her falling in love as Stephen's condition improved. Their genuine happiness, his proposal, her nervousness, uncontrollable tears, the overwhelming joy on their wedding day, and their warm, happy home. Until now, when she had lost the man who once held her heart, losing the happiness and love she had fought so hard for. When had it begun? How had that love and happiness vanished? 7 years ago, Anna could never forgive the woman she had become. She felt she deserved to die 1,000 deaths. Her heart felt shattered, riddled with holes, bleeding out. Anna now understood why Stephen had left so decisively, but she couldn't accept it. A few days ago, she had still tried to use her tears and sweet words to beg for his forgiveness, believing that if she was humble enough, Stephen wouldn't have the heart to turn her away. But she had forgotten that Stephen was stubborn. After everything he had endured, once he decided something, there was no room for negotiation. In their marriage, Anna had always seen Stephen compromising and yielding to her, forgetting his true nature. By the time she realized her mistakes and wanted to make amends, Stephen had already decided not to give her another chance. He had withdrawn his love, and his heart had ceased to exist. Stephen had given up on her. Anna panicked, filled with fear and regret. Only when she discovered that Stephen had abandoned her and left the country did she finally understand her own heart. She realized that David had been just a fleeting distraction in her otherwise happy marriage. The person she had always loved, from the very beginning, was Stephen. David had threatened her with death, held her with his tears, but her moral conscience prevented her from staying. In the end, she had to convince herself that it was Stephen who had sent her to David, and that she would indulge herself just this once. She would return to him, and Stephen would never know. She had completely destroyed everything. Now, no one was preventing her and David from flying off together, but she regretted it deeply, so much that she felt like ending her life. After being discharged from the hospital, I immersed myself in work. Within just 2 days, I had gained the acceptance of the employees in Paris, who sincerely admired me as their new leader. When Sophie was impressed by my abilities, I didn't even glance up from the contract, casually responding, "It's normal." Sophie admired capable people. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so obedient to George. At that moment, her admiration for me peaked, as if her face said, "I'm Stephen's little fangirl." Regarding this trip to Paris, I was content with everything except one thing. I couldn't understand why George insisted on having Sophie move into my place. The villa next to the company had originally been rented by George for himself, but one day Sophie informed me she was moving in. At first, I thought she was joking. To my surprise, that afternoon she arrived with her bags and moved in. She claimed it was because she was in a foreign country and short on funds. I offered to help her out. Sophie then said, "A gentleman doesn't accept unsolicited charity." I was speechless. Was it because George knew I was divorcing Anna and wanted to irritate her by placing another woman in my home? I couldn't help but chuckle quietly. George was so childish. On the first weekend in Paris, George came for a work inspection. I teased him, saying, "Chairman Wu, you really are a man of many responsibilities, not even giving your employees time to rest on weekends." Lounging on the sofa, George glared at me and bluntly said, "Don't think I can't tell you're accusing me of exploiting the staff." Caught. I held a cushion and smiled, my eyes narrowing with amusement. He insisted, "Don't change the subject. I'm asking you, are you really going through with the divorce from Anna? Have you really made up your mind?" I didn't want to talk about her. I grabbed a carton of milk from the table and shifted the topic. "Next time you come to Paris, remember to bring me a box of domestic milk. I just feel that foreign milk isn't as pure as the domestic kind." George widened his eyes and sternly said, "Stephen, stop trying to change the subject. Answer my question." I finally stopped avoiding the issue and replied seriously, "I've made up my mind. I'm really going to divorce her." He asked, "So Anna still doesn't agree? Otherwise, she wouldn't keep calling and harassing me." "She keeps calling you," I responded, frowning slightly. George raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I purposely didn't block her so she could feel there was some hope, but at the same time, no real hope. A sense of despair." I gave him a thumbs up and said, "As expected of you." George ran his hand through his hair and said, "Anna's little lover must have been kicked to the curb. A few days ago, he caused a scene at the company gate. I had security stop him and warned that if he came back, I'd report their dirty business to his workplace. It worked. He hadn't shown up for a few days. Honestly, Stephen, you're too easygoing. Sending those embarrassing details to your close friends and mutual friends is pointless. You should have reported them straight to the authorities. I listened without responding. I had only spared Anna out of consideration for the 12 years we had spent together. If she really pushed me too far one day, I wouldn't hesitate to report everything to their company. That weekend, George got up early, planning to take me out for some serious shopping. Just as I was putting on my shoes, my phone started ringing wildly. "Is this Stephen? I'm Ryan. Your mom just fainted and was rushed to the hospital. Stephen, please come quickly." Ryan was my mother's second husband. Upon hearing the news, I panicked, almost dropping my phone. I quickly put on my shoes and rushed out. George thought I was in a hurry to go out, so he chased after me, saying, "Stephen, wait for me." It wasn't until we were in the car on our way to the airport that I finally calmed down enough to explain. "My mom's in the hospital." The car fell into heavy silence. My mom had always been healthy, so her sudden collapse and hospitalization definitely had other reasons behind it. Reflecting on Ryan's half-finished words, I guessed that Anna must have gone to my mom's place to beg for forgiveness after being unable to reach me. I said, "George, call Anna right now. I need to know where she is." I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my face grave. George immediately understood and quickly scrolled through his missed calls to call her back. The phone rang for a long time before being hung up, but Anna didn't answer, which only deepened my suspicions. I pursed my lips, my eyes burning with restrained anger. George worried I might drive recklessly and tried to comfort me the entire way on the plane. I remained tense. It wasn't until we landed and reached the hospital that I finally relaxed when I saw my mom was awake and in stable condition. Anna was standing in the corner of the room, staring at me with red eyes, not daring to come forward. After comforting my mom, I glanced at her and walked out of the room. Anna followed me out. Walking into a side security corridor, I pulled out my cigarette case and was about to light one when Anna approached and grabbed my hand. Her voice was hoarse. As soon as she spoke, I gave her an icy look, causing her to freeze and release my hand. Her eyes flashed with hurt as she awkwardly pulled her hand back. She said, "Stephen, don't smoke. Your body can't handle it." I snorted coldly and stuffed the cigarette back into my pocket. "Whether I can handle it or not has nothing to do with you. Anna, is my mom in the hospital because of you?" Anna lowered her head like a child who knew she had done something wrong and didn't dare to speak. That's when I looked at her more carefully. Her wrinkled clothes, the dark circles under her eyes, her messy hair. I couldn't reconcile this woman with the meticulous, flawless, and elegant woman I had once known. "But so what? She brought this all upon herself," I said. "Anna, let's take this opportunity and go get our divorce papers. I'll contact you when I've made an appointment." I didn't want to prolong it any further, so I turned to leave. Anna had been waiting a long time to see me, so she wasn't going to let me leave so easily. She said, "Stephen, don't go. Don't leave me. Please." Anna blocked my way and suddenly dropped to her knees, holding onto my legs. She begged, "Hubby, I was wrong. I truly realize my mistake. Please, for the sake of the good times we had, forgive me this one last time. Please." I stood still, unmoving. I could feel her tears soaking through my pants. "Anna, your tears aren't worth anything," I responded in a cold tone. Anna trembled as she pleaded, "Hubby, I beg you, give me one more chance. This time I won't do anything to hurt you again. I'll take care of you." The mention of her body triggered me. I felt like an angry cat, all my nerves on edge. I slapped her hard across the face and said harshly, "Anna, you're a heartless bitch. You don't deserve me. Don't call me hubby. It disgusts me. Go to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow and get the divorce certificate, or you'll wait for me to sue you." Without looking back, I walked away, but just before I left, I heard her voice again. "Stephen, I saw the diagnosis. It's because I didn't take you to the hospital in time that it got worse." When she asked that, I clearly heard the tremble in her voice. If this were before, I would never have let her blame herself like that. I would have lied to comfort her. But now, with my back turned to her, I answered firmly, "Yes, it's all because of you. All the pain I've suffered is your fault." As soon as I said that, Anna couldn't control her emotions anymore. She collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably, her body racked with pain. She no longer had the strength or courage to stop me. After returning to Beijing, I didn't go home but went straight to a hotel. My mom was no longer in critical condition, so I didn't need to stay at the hospital. After arranging everything, I returned to the hotel to rest. That night, there was a heavy rain. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. So I took out the portable notebook I always carried and started working. Around 1 a.m., the doorbell to my room rang. I put down my laptop, grabbed a glass vase from the side, and quietly walked to the door. I couldn't see anyone through the peephole, so I became even more cautious. I asked, "Who is it? If you don't answer, I'll call the police." A hotel staff member stuck their head out, quickly waving their hands and explaining, "I'm terribly sorry to bother you at this hour, but we really don't know what else to do. There's someone downstairs, kneeling in the rain, and it's seriously affecting the hotel's operations. Could you please come down and take a look?" I lowered my guard, confused, and asked, "If someone's kneeling in the rain, why not just call the police? What do you need me for?" The staff member looked uncomfortable and said, "This kind of situation is the hotel's worst nightmare. Calling the police without cause could cause unnecessary panic and reduce guest traffic. The person said their name is Anna, and she's your wife. This is your personal matter." Hearing that name sent a chill down my spine. I had sent Anna a divorce appointment notice earlier that night, and she must have come to make a scene about it. I didn't want to complicate things for the staff, so I reluctantly put on my clothes and followed them downstairs. A crowd had gathered outside the hotel, watching. Even though it was already late, Beijing's streets were never empty, with people always rushing by at all hours. I pushed through the crowd and walked toward the rain. At this point, I didn't know how long Anna had been kneeling in the rain, but her entire body was soaked, and her face was so pale that she looked like she might pass out any moment. When she saw me, her eyes lit up. She crawled toward me, wanting to hug me, but too afraid I would reject her. In the end, she could only clench her fists, sadly looking up at me and saying, "Stephen, I knew you'd come out to see me. You've forgiven me, right?" I didn't know how she came to that conclusion. Standing under the dark umbrella, I looked down at her and said, "Anna, you—" Before I could finish my sentence, Anna's phone rang. At this hour, the number of people who could be calling her was very limited. So I fell silent and glanced at the phone in her pocket, which kept lighting up and then going dark. I said, "Aren't you going to answer? Maybe they really have an urgent matter. Perhaps it's the light bulb that's broken again. And if you don't pick up in time, your little lover might get hurt. I'll have no way to explain it." "Noah, please don't say that." Anna's eyes filled with hurt. How could she not know I was mocking her? If she hadn't gone to take care of David's cat and delayed my treatment, I wouldn't have suffered so much. Every time I thought of what happened, she hated herself, wishing she could destroy everything. Under my cold gaze, Anna trembled and took out her phone. The caller ID read, "David." Seeing my indifferent expression, Anna's heart sank. She asked, "Noah, do you really not care about me anymore?" I raised an eyebrow nonchalantly and even spoke a few words on David's behalf. The poor guy is all alone, struggling in Beijing. As a friend, as a superior, it's only right that you check on him. My words were like daggers, further tearing her already broken heart. Anna's body swayed as if she was about to collapse. She said, "Stephen, please, don't say that. Don't treat me like this. I'll never let anyone take me away from you again. Don't. I can't bear it." I took a step back to avoid her, then smiled coldly. "Didn't you tell me he was all alone?" I leaned slightly closer to her and said, "You should feel sorry for him." Our gazes met, and Anna clearly saw the mockery in my eyes. A sharp, heart-wrenching pain surged up in her chest, and her eyes burned with unshed tears. The tears mixed with the rain and silently slid down her face, only her slightly trembling shoulders betraying how heartbroken she was. I glanced at her in disdain and stood up. Just as I was about to say something, my phone vibrated cheerfully in my hand. I slowly read the unknown number and looked up at Anna, saying, "Your little lover." From the panic in her eyes, I knew I was right. She pleaded, "Noah, don't answer it." Anna tried to get up, but after kneeling for so long, she collapsed again. I watched her disgraceful fall without any reaction. I answered the call and switched to speakerphone. David's frantic voice instantly blared through the speaker. He cursed. "Noah, you bastard. Why don't you just die? Give Anna back to me." "David, shut up!" Anna screamed, losing control. I smiled sarcastically, crouched down beside her, and spoke elegantly. "David, you really want to see her, don't you? I'll make it happen." David growled in a hoarse voice. "Stephen, what do you mean?" I said, "Don't rush." I tucked my phone into my pocket, then reached into Anna's pocket with one hand. Anna stiffened and stared at me without blinking. I picked up Anna's phone, successfully unlocked it, and scrolled through WeChat. Finally, I removed David from the blacklist and made a video call. Anna saw what I was doing and softly asked, "Stephen, what are you doing?" I gave her a wait-and-see look. When the video call connected, David spoke with joy. "Senior, you finally decided to talk to me." But when he saw me on the other end, David's handsome face immediately twisted in disgust. He said, "Noah, do you have no shame? We've already slept together and you still won't let go." Anna shouted, "David, you bastard, shut up!" She desperately tried to grab the phone. I was quick to raise it out of her reach, then turned the camera to face her. I said, "David, your woman is kneeling outside my hotel door, begging me to forgive her. You can see all these witnesses." I spun the phone around, then smiled and said, "You see, she's trying so hard. Shouldn't I give her a chance?" On the other end, David froze for a moment before glaring at me and saying, "Noah, you're a bastard. You dare." I laughed. "Why wouldn't I dare? Don't forget, legally I'm still her husband, and you're just a nobody. A mistress who can't even show her face." Before David could lose his composure again, I ended the video call and hung up. I handed the phone back to Anna. She remained frozen, kneeling there with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. It dawned on me that the lies I had told to anger David had also deceived Anna. I threw the phone in her face and suddenly stood up in a cold tone. "Anna, stop dreaming. Everything I just said was a lie. While I still have some patience left, you better get out. By the way, I just broke your little lover. You should go comfort him, or you'll lose him and your dignity." I laughed heartily, and Anna finally realized that I'd been lying to her. As I walked away, Anna could no longer control herself. She screamed, and overwhelming pain seemed to engulf her like an invisible wave. She covered her face with both hands and cried uncontrollably. After my mom was discharged from the hospital, she urged me to return to Paris as soon as possible. I had originally planned to stay with her longer, but I'd stayed up all night finishing the necessary work for the week. Seeing her in such good spirits, I felt reassured. Before I left, my mom pulled me aside to talk. She said, "Stephen, your mother fainted because of that wicked woman Anna. You absolutely can't let her trick you again." I asked, "Don't worry, Mom, I won't forgive her again." But I was curious. What exactly did Anna do? As soon as Anna's name was mentioned, my mom fumed and cursed. "That little bitch. She knelt outside our door for 2 days begging me and your Uncle G for forgiveness. The neighbors all know why she was kneeling. It almost made me the laughingstock of the whole street. I've never been humiliated like that." I quickly comforted my mom. She lived in our rural hometown, where she'd always been tough, but she hated people gossiping behind her back. In the countryside, rumors spread fast. Anna's actions had definitely angered my mom. I said, "Mom, don't be upset. I'll have a good talk with Anna, and she'll never disturb your life with Uncle G again. When my mom heard this, she quickly reminded me, Noah, it's fine if I'm the one who bears a little pain, but you can't forgive her again. You're such a good-looking, capable young man. I'm sure you'll meet someone much better. Her words almost made me tear up. After I reassured her again, my mom finally calmed down. I wanted to send her home, but my mom insisted I stay in Beijing. She said, Stephen, you've got the divorce papers, right? Hurry back to Paris. That guy works at the Astronomy Bureau, and without approval, he can't leave the country. This way, you can start your new life with no other choice. I rented a car for my mom and reminded her to check in with me once she got home. After sending her off, I checked the divorce appointment. There was still plenty of time left. I tried contacting Anna, but her phone was unreachable. I thought about going home to see if she had signed the divorce papers. But when I arrived home, I found Anna collapsed at the entrance. I kicked the woman on the floor. When she didn't wake up, I crouched down and carried her to the sofa. I checked her temperature and realized she had a fever. I didn't bother with her further, but instead grabbed her phone and sent David a text message. Dear, I have a fever. Can you come take care of me? The reply came quickly, and I saw David had already left. I could imagine how thrilled David must be right now. I searched the entire house and finally found pieces of the divorce agreement in the bedroom trash can. Furious, I kicked the trash can across the room. The noise woke Anna up from the living room. She asked, Stephen, is that you? I stormed out, holding the torn pieces of paper, and demanded, Anna, what the hell do you want? Anna looked at me, wounded, trying to get up but too weak to move. I closed my eyes, then said coldly, Forget it. Since you're awake, let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and get the divorce certificate. But in the end, we didn't get the divorce certificate. Seeing the time was almost up and David was about to arrive, I angrily slammed the door and left. When Anna chased after me, I was already in a taxi. She ran after the cab, tripping and getting up again, looking a mess. It wasn't until David arrived and held her tightly that she stopped running. I sneered and muttered, You really can't teach a dog to stop eating shit. After returning to Paris, I went straight to the office. Having not rested properly for over 10 hours, I was exhausted but couldn't fall asleep. When Sophie entered with a coffee, I was rubbing my temples at my desk. Hearing the noise, I opened my eyes and looked at her. She said, Chairman Lynn, coffee. Sophie gently placed the coffee in front of me. I took a small sip, and whether it was psychological or not, I instantly felt refreshed. I said, Thank you, I've been so worn out. This coffee just saved me. I joked as I thanked her, successfully making Sophie laugh. That evening, Sophie drove me home. We lived in the same villa, with Sophie on the first floor and me on the second. The space was big enough that it would be hard to run into each other unless we tried. But tonight, Sophie specially made some domestic dishes and invited me downstairs to eat. I wanted to refuse, but didn't want to hurt her feelings. The food was delicious, and I couldn't help but glance at Sophie a few times. After dinner, I volunteered to clean up the dishes. When I finally lay back in bed, George sent me a text. I know you're feeling down, but at least a good meal in a foreign land should comfort your wounded heart. I smiled wryly, knowing George was probably the one pulling strings behind the scenes. As the night grew deeper, I started feeling sleepy. Just as I was about to drift off, there was a rapid knock on the door. Chairman Lynn, are you asleep? What is it? I quickly got dressed and opened the door. Sophie, with a worried expression, pulled me out of the room. She said, Chairman Lynn, a fellow countryman is kneeling at our doorstep. It's causing quite a stir among the foreigners. She's probably here for you. I immediately guessed who it was, and my temples began to throb when I saw Anna. The first thing I said was, Aren't you not allowed to leave the country? Anna trembled slightly, her face showing uncontrollable excitement. She said, Stephen, you're concerned about me. I rolled my eyes and coldly replied, I'm just wondering how the Astronomy Bureau could approve your trip abroad, letting you come here to cause trouble. The light in Anna's eyes immediately faded, and she lowered her head, whispering, I didn't report it to the company. I left the country without permission. Stephen, seeing how sincere I am, can you give me another chance? Anna lifted her head. Her eyes filled with pain and despair. I frowned, walked down the stairs, and dragged her into the villa. Anna, is your dignity so cheap? Didn't you see all the people recording videos? Do you really want to make a name for yourself online? Anna actually didn't care about that. She'd already lost her husband. What did she have left to lose? She wanted everyone to see how determined she was to win me back. But I was very concerned about appearances, so Anna had no choice but to follow me. Even though I was dragging her like a chicken, she was strangely happy, because it was better than me avoiding her. Once inside the villa, Anna realized I wasn't living alone. There were women's things around. Her heart immediately sank, and she wanted to ask, but when she saw my expression, it turned into a self-deprecating smile. Her desire to hold me and her greed grew wildly in that instant. Anna took a step closer, her eyes filled with sorrow and deep affection, almost drowning me, but I could see nothing but impatience and anger in her eyes. I said, Anna, if you take one more step, I'll call the Astronomy Bureau and report you. With just that sentence, all the courage Anna had built up vanished. She stood still, 1 meter away, afraid to move. Before I lost my patience, she took out a star certificate from her pocket and handed it to me with hope in her eyes. Stephen, look, I've named a star after you. See? I glanced at it indifferently and scoffed. Anna, are you stupid or am I? You bring a fake certificate and claim you named a star after me. Are you here to make a joke? Discovering a new star wasn't that simple. Even if she had found one, it would have been reported in the news, not quietly handed to me. Anna's eyes flashed with a hint of panic as she quickly explained. Noah, I'll make this star certificate real. I promise I will. Her gaze grew more determined as she continued. Stephen, I know you won't easily forgive me for my past mistakes, but can you give me a chance to make things right? I'll give you the real certificate. I'll go with you on a trip around the Northwest Loop. I'll prove to you that I love you, that you're the only one in my heart. My husband will always be you. Please just let me slowly get back into your life, Stephen. I beg you. Anna spoke with such emotion that if I hadn't known her for 12 years, I might have been moved by her words. Tonight, I asked, is your resolution complete? I looked up at my phone, opening my mouth with amusement. Hurry up and go back to your country. The leadership at the Astronomy Bureau is probably going crazy looking for you. Anna froze for a moment, then spoke with a dead voice. Stephen, you really reported me? Do you hate me this much? I quickly interrupted. Stop making false accusations. It was your little lover who reported you. Upon hearing this, Anna quickly took out her phone. In order to avoid being disturbed, she had turned it off earlier. Now, the missed calls and unread messages were nearly overwhelming on the phone. Anna's chest heaved with anger, but there was no time to spare. She barely left a few words behind before rushing straight to the airport. Only then did Sophie come out of the kitchen asking, Chairman Lynn, are you okay? I waved my hand and walked upstairs, saying, if this happens again, just call the police and report someone trespassing. After arriving in Beijing, Anna didn't go to the Astronomy Bureau, but went straight home. As she opened the door, David, shirtless, grabbed her and pulled her into his arms. He said, Senior, I knew you'd come back to find me. I'm the one who loves you the most in this world. Anna's face darkened and she pushed him away. David was taken aback and tried to grab her again without any hint of sympathy. Anna slapped him hard and then shoved him against the shoe rack at the entrance. She said, David, what do you gain by ruining me at this moment? Anna hated him with all her heart. She grabbed his wrist, pulling him toward her. Her eyes filled with hatred as if she wanted to slice him into pieces. David looked at her in fear and then, with a low laugh, said, I do. If I didn't ruin you, would you have come back so easily to me? David, you bastard. David smirked, tears streaming from his eyes. He said, Bastard, didn't you enjoy it in bed? You even drove your husband away. Anna, you deserve this. Pain was written all over David's face, but he had to speak as though hurting her would somehow ease his own suffering. Anna slapped him again with such force that David took a long time to recover. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth, but Anna seemed not to notice. Her eyes were red with fury as she thought about how her career and her husband had all been ruined because of this bastard. She was consumed by rage, immense, uncontrollable rage. Anna blamed David for everything. She yelled, "Bastard, don't think I don't know what you've been doing behind my back." She grabbed David's arm and, using all her strength, dragged him out onto the street. "Since you have no shame and want to ruin my future, then don't think you'll get away unscathed." David desperately tried to break free, but his former glory was exposed to the onlookers on the street. At that moment, David was completely panicked, crying out in agony, "Senior, I was wrong. I truly was wrong. Please, don't do this to me." Anna ignored him and dragged him to the car, driving straight to the astronomy bureau. Along the way, David begged for mercy, but when that didn't work, he tried calling the police. Anna snatched his phone and threw it out the window. With her foot pressed firmly on the accelerator, the car sped forward like an arrow. Before David could faint from fear, Anna slammed on the brakes, bringing the car to a halt. As soon as they arrived at the astronomy bureau, many people rushed out. Anna's superior hurried over. "Anna, how could you leave the country without permission? You're a key member of our team. The higher-ups know you've gone abroad, and they plan to marginalize you. Come with me to the leadership office and apologize sincerely. It's your last chance." The leader urgently guided Anna to the office, but she stumbled as she followed. Once she steadied herself, Anna stopped walking. The leader turned around, his face full of confusion and concern. "Anna?" Anna replied, "I've let you down." Having calmed down from her rage, Anna looked at him with tears in her eyes and sincerely apologized. The leader didn't understand, but when he followed the gaze of the curious colleagues, he finally noticed David, nearly naked. "What's going on?" the leader asked in shock. Anna turned back, pulling David toward her and revealing the truth. "David, a member of my team, this bastard right here, he's the one who seduced me, leading to my divorce and losing my husband." David screamed, "No, that's not true." He was breaking down, covering his face and pleading, "Please stop. I won't bother you again." Anna smiled coldly and continued, "This bastard not only seduced me, but also, while we were having an affair, seduced the wife of a big shot from City B and slept with her. A scumbag like this deserves the scorn of everyone by now." The colleagues were completely stunned by the shocking news, and Anna continued her tirade. "I'm exposing this today not only to rid the world of harm, but also to show my husband, who's abroad, that I am determined. Even if he never forgives me, I will love him forever." Many people were recording videos, and Anna boldly declared in front of the cameras. In the midst of the chaos, police cars and the big shot from City B arrived. Anna and David were both taken away by the police. The big shot from City B never got out of his car and followed the police car to the station. No one knew exactly who the big shot from Beijing was, but they all knew David's career was finished. Not only had he ruined his future, but he would never be able to stay in City B again. 2 days later, after the constant efforts of the Astronomy Bureau's leadership, Anna was released. The Liu family, upon learning of their daughter's actions, unilaterally declared the termination of their father-daughter and mother-daughter relationships. Anna's actions caused severe negative consequences. Although she had made significant contributions, the Astronomy Bureau ultimately decided to fire her. Anna lost her job, her former glory, and her family. She was now truly a solitary person, with a case of beer in hand. She climbed to the rooftop of her home and drank under the moonlit sky. A smile lingered on her lips, but tears continually streamed from her eyes. The incident made the news and was reported repeatedly. She didn't believe Stephen hadn't heard about it, but he never said a word, not even a casual check-in. But Anna didn't regret it. This was her punishment. David disappeared from the streets and alleys of Beijing, but Anna knew that it was the big shot's wife who had taken him away. That woman depended on the big shot to live, and the big shot wasn't someone you could easily brush off. He was ruthless. David's end would be 1,000 times worse than hers. I did see the news, but I only thought of it as a joke. Work in Paris was going increasingly well, and I was gradually adapting to life here. In my spare time, I liked to sit in a little cafe tucked away in a quiet alley. I would order a coffee, perhaps a slice of cake, and spend my evenings watching the people pass by. Life felt so pleasant. One day, while holding my coffee and reading under the sunlight, I received a call from Anna. We hadn't been in touch for a long time, and hearing her voice again felt rough and grating, as if her voice had been scraped with sandpaper. She said, "Stephen, I really miss you." I frowned slightly, pulling the phone away from my ear. Taking a sip of my coffee, I spoke in a calm tone. "Have you signed the divorce agreement? Once you've signed it, just send it to my house or to the office. Don't contact me unless it's about that." There was a long silence on the other end. Just before I was about to hang up, she suddenly spoke. "I'm sorry." Then I heard her breaking down into uncontrollable sobs. Her voice was full of sadness and panic, as though she had lost everything. She said, "Stephen, please, give me one more chance. What do you want me to do? I'll do anything. Please don't leave me. We've been together for 12 years. If you don't want me, how am I supposed to live? I've made everything I did wrong public for you. I'm willing to be scorned and cursed by everyone. Doesn't that at least make up for some of the mistakes I made?" I couldn't help but laugh. Upon hearing my laugh, Anna's crying suddenly stopped. She asked helplessly, "Stephen, what are you laughing at?" I closed the book, settled comfortably on the sofa, and replied in a calm tone, "Anna, you're still the same. After all these years, you've always been like this. You're so sure I love you that if you just shed a few tears, I'll feel sorry for you and forgive you. Yes, that's how I used to be. But have you ever thought about it? I don't love you anymore." Anna went silent for a moment. Then she broke down and screamed, "No, I don't believe you, Noah. I don't believe that you don't love me anymore. You used to love me so much. How could you suddenly stop loving me? I only made a small mistake. I've already realized my wrongs. Why won't you give me another chance to make things right?" Hearing this, I realized she still hadn't understood her mistakes. In her mind, as long as she made herself miserable enough for me to feel sorry for her, I would be obligated to forgive her and take her back. I was so tired after all these years. At this point, there was nothing more to say to Anna. Rubbing my temples, I spoke coldly. "Anna, please stop disturbing my life. Since you're willing to sign the divorce agreement after 2 years of separation, I'll file for divorce." As soon as I finished speaking, I hung up the phone, not wanting to hear any more of her words. Time flew by, and soon it was late autumn. George's wedding was fast approaching. After finishing my work in Paris, I returned to the country 3 days early. I spent my time running around helping George. More exhausted than after weeks of nonstop work, George deliberately came over and teased, "Chairman Lynn, you've worked hard. Next time you get married, I'll be the one running around serving you." I slouched on the sofa and swung my fist, saying, "Are you asking for a beating? What wedding? Who am I even marrying?" George quickly backed off and exchanged looks with Sophie. I got up, followed his gaze, and immediately fumed. "George, you're asking for it." Amid the playful teasing, the wedding day arrived. I didn't expect to see Anna at George's wedding. My face soured, but I understood. The problem with being with Anna for so long was the sheer number of mutual friends we had. When I walked into the venue, Anna was there, wearing a white cocktail dress, holding a bouquet of red roses. People were staring at her, but she seemed oblivious to it. As soon as she saw me, her eyes lit up. Anna walked toward me step by step. I watched her closely and realized she was even thinner than before, her complexion looking worse. Anna had lost her job, her reputation, and me because of the David incident. She was no longer the proud and confident woman she once was. Our mutual friends didn't welcome her anymore. All of this I learned from George the day after I returned. I wasn't affected by it. I just thought Anna had lost her mind. She had reaped what she sowed. And it was all her fault. Since that phone call, I hadn't answered any of Anna's calls. I was living carefree in Paris, only concerned about George and my mother. I didn't want to waste time thinking about people who no longer mattered. Anna, looking at me, bright and handsome, was torn between comfort and pain. Comforted because she had finally seen the man she had longed for, and pained because behind me was an atmosphere of happiness, in stark contrast to the despair she was living. She gazed at me with faint hope and said with difficulty, "Stephen, after all this time, are you still angry with me? I really love you. I can't live without you." I stared at her steadily. Back in university, whenever I saw a couple getting married, I would buy a rose and give it to Anna. I didn't know how I would feel seeing her again, whether anger, fatigue, or disgust. But to my surprise, I felt nothing at all. During this time, while working hard, I also met many new friends. Both my wallet and my heart were full. George was calling. "Stephen, hurry up and come take a photo." George shouted from inside. I raised my hand and waved toward him. Before leaving, I looked seriously at the woman in front of me and said, "Anna, don't do anything meaningless anymore. We all need to move forward." Anna's face turned even paler, and her body swayed as if she were about to collapse. I didn't care. I walked past her and went inside to take photos. People move forward, and flowers bloom toward the sun. No one stays in the same place waiting for you.